It is time. I have returned. We are back for what will probably be the last half hour, the 45 minutes of this game. But it was not something I was about to leave for another day. But I had to go, unfortunately, because, you know, real life called. So we will continue exactly where we left off. February the 10th, 3:36 PM. District Court, courtroom number 7. It's time for our final showdown, us versus Godot. Now then, before we proceed any further, I'm going to announce the results of the tests we had performed earlier. Tests? Yes, tests. On the bloody dagger that was found stuck in the pine tree. Oh yeah, that. Totally forgot about it. That's the weapon that Maya Fey used when she fought with the victim. So what are the results? Was it the victim's blood, or due to the time constraints a full test was impossible? However, there's one thing we can say with certainty. The blood that was on this dagger was not the victim's blood. That is all. Now then, let's restart this trial. So it wasn't Misty's blood on the dagger. Then whose was it? Keep that in mind. It's going to be the stepping stone of Godot's downfall. If I'm trying to defeat him as a defense and prosecution. I'm sure both the defense and the prosecution know this, but this trial is rapidly coming to a close. Both sides will need to show some firm evidence with their claims. I understand, Your Honor. From what I've heard, the witness is dangerously weak, physically speaking, so let's finish this quickly. Agreed. Very well, please bring in the last witness. Hello, Maya. Witness, please tell your name and your profession. Maya Fey. My profession is, I'm an assistant manager at Wright & Co. Law Offices. Maya. According to the magazine I have here, you're a spirit medium with the Karain channeling technique. I'm frightened. The Fey clan, I don't want any more to do with it. Oh, Maya. The pain the Fey bloodline causes must be unbearable. Very well. Now then, Miss Fey. When the event occurred, you were in the garden of the inner temple. And you witnessed the moments of Miss Elise Dewsonham's murder. Is that correct? I didn't see any... Straighten up this instant, young lady. Huh? Pick your head up and speak clearly. There's always time for crying later. But Your mother was killed right in front of your eyes. There's nothing you can do to change that fact. But there's something you can do. You can finish this. You've been watching the whole thing, right? You've seen the witnesses come out, and you've seen us squeeze the truth out of them. Now it's your turn. Let's hear your testimony. On the night of the crime, what exactly did you see happen? Witness, if you please. Yes, Your Honor. I was passing through the garden on the way to a spare prep room when it happened. Suddenly, someone struck me over the head. I stumbled and ended up against a stone lantern. I think I screamed, "Help me!" Then something warm splashed over me. That's when I lost consciousness. So you were struck on the head. I suppose this must have been that star. Maya, the person who hit you. It was Dahlia Hawthorne, wasn't it? I'm sorry, Nick. I couldn't see. I don't know who it was. Maya, think hard. Sorry, Nick, but I really couldn't. Can't say it was an especially good night for young ladies to be walking around alone. It seems that it will be hard to determine the criminal through testimony alone. Very well then, Mr. Wright, please begin your cross-examination. Maya, hang in there. She doesn't look well at all. You think you streamed? But you're not sure? Listen, I was a complete wreck. It was dark, and I couldn't see my attacker. Was it a man, a woman, an adult, a child? I had no idea. I was scared out of my wits. Believe me, my dear, I'm certain I would have soiled my robes. I thought this person might attack me, so I... Anyway, I'm pretty sure I screamed. I thought that was my last hope. Wow, it sounds like poor little Maya really was out of her mind. But I wonder what she meant by last hope. What do I do? Do I press her for more details? Wait a minute, Maya. What's this my last hope stuff? What? What do you mean by your last hope? No. That's what you said. You said, my last hope. Huh? What? I said what? Look, you were facing an attacker that you couldn't see and you screamed, right? You screamed, help me. Yeah? But you testified that you screamed that because you thought it was your last hope. Oh, well, you know, that's like... What do you do when that happens? Well, it's not doing so well up there. Oh yeah, Oh, that's right. I remember now. I was facing my attacker, but that's not who I was screaming at. What did you just say? Yeah, that's right. There was the person behind the attacker that I was yelling at. That's who I was screaming to for help. What is it now? I messed up. I didn't mean to let that slip out. Huh? Witness, are you absolutely sure on what you're saying? Behind the attacker, there was another person. I meant to keep that part a secret. What have I done? Huh. It takes a ton of pressure to make a diamond. That's what I always say. A ton of pressure? You're in a court of law here. You can't make things up to try and hide things in this chamber. Witness, the information you just presented is vital to the case. I want you to add it to your testimony. Press stone lantern's statement. I could see a man behind. So, there was a man standing behind your attacker? Yeah. That man. He's the killer. He stabbed her from behind. He's the one who killed Elise Jusenum, otherwise known as Misty Faye, your mother. The killer? Maya, you know who killed your mother, don't you? What is the meaning of this, Mr. Wright? To be frank, Your Honor, I think she is in shock and quite confused. That's why she hasn't noticed a huge problem with her testimony. Huh? What do you mean? What problem? Maya, on this night of the crime, that stone lantern was out of commission. Huh? What? It's true. There was no light anywhere in the garden that night. No. Order in the court. Mr. Godot, explain this. Add the pureness of milk to the perfect clear darkness of coffee. Stir. That is the state of the witness's mind right now. A cup of café au lait. I don't know what that is. Café au lait? Even legal. Mr. Trite's words are the milk and you are the spoon. Your Honor. I'm a spoon? Oh, spoony bard. I can Final Fantasy IV reference, I'll have you know. You must have noticed it too, Trite. This witness's mental state is highly unstable right now. It's not hard to understand why she would make a little mistake like that. Sorry, but that's not going to cut it. What did you say? It's true. If there truly was no light in the garden, then there's a fatal contradiction in this witness's last bit of testimony. Nick? May I? Recall the witness's statement about her attacker. She said that she didn't know if it was a man or a woman, an adult or a child. And yet, the witness could describe a person that was standing behind her attacker, as she quite clearly described him as a man. In other words, that would have mean that Maya actually saw our mystery person, despite it being so dark that she couldn't see the face of her own attacker. No. Only one person that could be. There's absolutely no light whatsoever. What would you see? In the world does this all mean, Mr. Wright? Are you saying Miss Faye saw the real killer under pitch black conditions? Wright, do you have any idea what you're proposing? How could she have seen in the dark? There was no other light source at the scene. There are some things that you can only see in the dark, Mr. Godot. Maya, you did see who the killer was in the dark, and now you're trying to cover for him. Cover? For the man who killed her mother? There's only one conclusion I can draw from this. You know who this man is. Please, Nick. I don't know anything. Please, I'm begging you. Ah. You talk a good game, Wright. Let's see if you can walk the walk. It was pitch black. So what could the witness see? I'm calling your bluff. No, Nick, don't. Please stop. Maya's dead set on protecting this guy, the man who murdered Maya's long-lost mother. But I can't let him get away with it. I'm a lawyer. I'm an officer of the court. I'm here to find the truth. All right, Mr. Wright. Time to show us what you've got. Who was the person that saw Miss Faye in the darkness? Because it was pitch black, Miss Faye was able to recognize the killer easily. I'm sure the court would like to see for itself how this is possible, yes? What? But how do you propose to show us something like that? It's easy. We just need to recreate the conditions of that night. Conditions? Your Honor, the defense officially requests that all the lights in this courtroom be turned off. What? What? This is... But it can't be. That was a nice bit of deduction. Try it. Well, everyone, this is the man Maya saw on the night of the murder. Order, order, order! Prosecutor Godot, what is the meaning of this? Surely you must be shocked to hear yourself accused of such a thing. Why aren't you denying it? Ah. Your Honor, you're asking the wrong person. What do you mean by that? If you've got a question, ask the witness. That's one of my rules. Well, Maya, how about it? What you saw that night? Was it 3 glowing red lights? Well, witness, answer the question. You're wrong. I never saw that. Maya, I thought the person that stabbed my mother was a man, for a totally different reason. What? Witness, Mr. Wright, what is... Stop your chattering, Your Honor. Chattering? If it's worth asking, ask the witness. Alright. Well then, let's continue with the testimony. Please tell us how you knew the killer was a man. Yes, Your Honor. I didn't realize it until after I woke up, but... The killer. When I came to, I was just lying there on the training hall floor. By the time I got back to the garden, the place had totally changed. The torches were lit, and the body was gone. And all of the snow around the stone lantern had been carefully cleaned up too. And since the person did all that work alone, I just assumed it was a man. It was after the crime took place that the witness came to think the killer was a man. Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, Your Honor. No need to apologize. It's as Mr. Godot said, you're utterly exhausted. Only natural that you would be a little confused. Also, if you consider the situation you described, it doesn't seem too much of a stretch to assume the culprit was a man. Mr. Wright, proceed with your cross-examination. The torches were lit. Yes, that's how I noticed that the whole scene had changed. I'm going to say it was the killer who lit the torches. I mean, who else could it be? The killer probably lit them, since it'd be impossible to do any cover-up work in the dark. However, if that's true, there's one thing that still bothers me. Why did the killer go to the effort of moving the body? That's true. It's hard to see how that would be any advantage to the killer. The only one who would gain anything from that would be The only person that was at the inner temple, Maya. Very well. Let me hear some more of this condition of the crime scene. So you're saying that the killer cleaned up the snow? This is really odd. The snow was removed in an unnatural looking rectangular shape around the lantern. There were a lot of shovels around the inner temple, but they're all really heavy, way too heavy for me to use. An odd fellow indeed, this killer. Why on earth would anyone want to take snow away? Well, there's one thing I can think of. You say that there was a lot of victims' blood sprayed onto the snow? Yeah. That area I collapsed in ended up being splattered. In other words, the killer's purpose was to hide the bloody snow. I think that's the most reasonable explanation. Perhaps. However, there's something that's bothering me. The killer just wanted to hide the snow with the blood on it. There was no need to remove that amount. That's true. He could have just scooped up. Just the snow that was stained with blood. Looks like there are some mysteries behind this issue. But I think this will help explain them. Naturally, the killer must have done it, right? Yes, I think so. But why would the killer tamper with the crime scene like that? There must have been something that the killer desperately wanted to hide. The truth is, when I saw the crime scene, I felt something. You did? Yeah. I felt like the killer was hiding the evidence for me. For my sake. What? Hiding it for you? Everyone knew that I was the only one at the inner temple that night. If Sister Bikini had come back and looked at the garden, she may have thought that you had done it. No, she definitely would have thought so. And you're saying that that's why the killer cleaned up the crime scene to make it look like nothing had happened? Yes, I'm sure of it. Well, that's certainly an important piece of information. I want you to add it to your testimony. Yes, Your Honor. Objection! The body of Elise Ducenum was carried all the way to the Azakura Temple's courtyard. Then, at the garden, the real scene of the crime, the snow that we suspect was covered in blood was scooped up and removed. It's reasonable to believe all this was done in an attempt to hide the true crime scene. However, there's still one matter that seems somewhat odd. Oh? And what would that be? You must have figured it out by now, Mr. Godot. It's the message written in blood on the lantern. It was written very cleanly on the white stone lantern. Maya. If the killer was so motivated to protect Maya from suspicion, then why didn't they wipe the writing off the lantern? You're right. Order, order, order. But, Mr. Wright, isn't that fact that the killer was trying to cover up the crime scene? Indeed, but it doesn't make much sense to move the body and remove the bloody snow, then not wipe off the most incriminating thing of all, the bloody writing. Objection! But if that's the case, do you have any explanation for the killer's mysterious behaviour? Why would this killer move the body and remove all that snow? It's because he can't see red. He didn't know how far the blood had gone, so carved out a huge space to make sure there wasn't any. And because he also can't see red, didn't notice that there was blood writing on the thing. But then leave bloody writing on the lantern. I don't know what the killer's plan was, but it's a fact that the killer left the writing on the lantern. There must be a reason for it. Well then, Mr. Wright, let's hear your opinion. Why did the killer leave the bloody message? He didn't notice it. Prosecutor Godot, earlier in this trial, you gave me some good advice. Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. Maybe you're not as dumb as I thought. The real killer wanted to disguise the fact that the crime had occurred there. If that's the case, they wouldn't have left the bloody writing on the stone lantern on purpose. Therefore, it must be that they didn't notice it. But that doesn't make any sense. The torches were all lit and everything. There's no way any normal person would miss something as glaring as that. You're right. There's no way any normal person would. What? What are you trying to say, Mr. Wright? There's only one person involved in this incident who could have missed seeing the bloody writing altogether.
And who would that be? Who is this person?
Mr. Godot? This is what you said yesterday.
My eyesight is pretty messed up. Even with these huge goggles on my head, I still can't see everything.
Can't see everything? Is that correct, Mr. Godot? The lantern was submitted as evidence today. I would like the court to think back to the moment it was first presented.
This lantern? There's something written on it. Why, it's written in blood.
Nonsense. The lantern is as clean as a whistle. Mr. Godot, just admit it. There are certain colours you can't see, correct? You can't see red on a white background, can you? That's right. We went through this once before. During the poisoning case at Trebienne.
That is the apron that the delightful Miss Bird was wearing at the time. Someone else spilled coffee on. There's something still bothering me, Godot. Why have you not explained the bloodstain to the court?
Bloodstain? What bloodstain would that be?
When played games, prosecutor, the blood-colored stain that's smeared all over the apron.
That's ridiculous. No one told me anything about the bloodstain. You could see the coffee on the white apron, but you couldn't see the ketchup because it was red.
Ah, strange. In a black and white photo, those letters would have appeared black to me. I wonder, why am I the only one that can't see them? So then, Mr. Godot, are you admitting it? Are you admitting that you can't see red writing on the lantern? Hey, Gramps, didn't you know? That's the reason why I don't drink red tea.
I wasn't sure about it until now, but I just can't believe it. Prosecutor Godot is the murderer, but there's no going back now. I finally figured out the truth. Mr. Godot, the defense at this time formally accuses you. You are the murderer of Miss Elise Dusenon, also known as Miss Misty Fey.
It's hard to believe this may be true, however, once again Mr. Wright has brought up a disquieting fact about you.
Just make sure you don't fill out the indictment in red ink, Gramps. Come on. How does a little graffiti make me into the killer? Besides, it's not like it's my name is written there. I'm certain that the killer wasn't able to see the colour red.
This is rich. Do go on, Trite.
The answer is right there at the crime scene. In the snow.
The snow? How so?
Well, for example, why did the killer move all that snow? Your Honour, you said it yourself. If you wanted to hide the bloody snow, why not just take out just that area?
Yes, why would you take out just that? Oh, could it be?
Yes, the killer couldn't see the red blood that had leaked into the snow. And so, he had to remove all of the snow. He couldn't be sure where the blood had landed, so he removed the whole area.
Objection! Isn't it more likely that the killer couldn't see the blood because it was dark?
Not a chance. The torches were all lit. He would have been able to see just fine.
It seems that once again this trial has taken an unexpected turn, to say the least. Can you explain this, Mr. Godot?
Wait, just a minute.
Maya, what is this, witness?
Mr. Godot isn't the killer. After all, he didn't even come to the inner temple until 2 days after the murder took place. He didn't show up until after the old bridge got fixed up.
Objection! Maya, you can't testify to something like that.
Why? What do you mean? I may not look it, but
After the murder had happened, you didn't even exist. She didn't? I'm afraid I don't follow. Now you senile old man. We established this just a little while ago. After the murder, this witness was unconscious for a long time. Because she was channeling Dahlia Hawthorne. Oh, that's right.
Please, Your Honour, let me add to my testimony. Nick, Please listen to me.
Maya,
Do you plan to cover for Godot no matter what the cost?
if that's the case, then I've got no choice.
Your Honor, let's hear her testimony. If it means we're going to hear the whole truth, I say we should not silence her.
Ah, nicely done, Wright.
Very well, let's hear the witness's testimony. Please tell us what happened at the inner temple after the murder. Yes, sir. After I woke up, I began channeling and my spirit left me, as it were. But little Pearlie was there at the inner temple too. Pearlie was also stuck on the inner temple side that night. The next morning, she looked around but couldn't find anyone. The next day, when the bridge had finally fixed, she was in the small prep room. That's when Mr. Godot arrived at the inner temple for the first time. He found Pearlie first and cheered her right up. Who is this Pearlie? That's my little cousin, Pearl Fay. So when did you hear about this? Oh, just a while ago, when I was in the medical office. I'm terribly sorry. But what you heard from someone else is simply not admissible as testimony. What? Come on. Pearlie would never tell a lie. She's always a more honest person than I'll ever be. You're smart, Maya. You always know the best things to say when you're under oath.
Ah, the prosecution has no objection. We believe the witness.
Mr. Godot?
Let's just move on to the cross-examination if the defense has no objections.
That is highly unusual, but well, Mr. Wright, let's get this cross-examination started.
Yeah, Godot's like, he keeps on like standing up for himself, even when he's on his own. Mia's not with us.
Hold it. He cheered her up. That's what Pearlie said. She said he was a very nice older gentleman. Thank you for looking after my cousin, Mr. Godot.
No, and here I was thinking you were nothing more than a coffee addict.
Ah, cut it out. You're making me blush.
This guy is really beginning to get on my nerves, in more ways than one.
The truth is, there aren't that many people to look on in the inner temple side. The policemen were all busy going over the garden with fine-tooth combs, so I decided to carry out an investigation in my own way, Godot styled.
In the same way, I like to hand down verdicts in my own way, judge style.
Maybe I should start asking questions Phoenix style. Godot's investigation. You said that you conducted an investigation of your own. Did you find anything?
It looks like my investigation went about as well as yours, Trite. After all, I did miss the bloody writing on the lantern.
Well, I didn't miss it, so speak for yourself, Goggles.
The only odd thing I discovered was the beauty in the training hall.
Beauty?
Misty Fey, naturally. Clad in her stunning Japanese garb, surrounded by a hue and aroma of Western tastes.
Western tastes? Could you find a stranger way to describe gravy?
From there you headed to the prep room.
Wait a sec. What did Godot just say now? I think I just found his proverbial weak spot. There's only one thing here of any importance. Where was Godot when the murder was taking place? He must have already been in the inner temple when it happened. Otherwise, he couldn't have killed Elise. Present the hanging scroll to the statement. That's when Mr. Godot arrives at the inner temple. Objection! Mr. Godot. The first time you crossed Dusky Bridge and went into the inner temple was long before the murder took place. Why do you say that? Because he just made one fatal slip-up. The hanging scroll in the training hall.
Hanging scroll?
But Mr. Godot is right. The scroll shows a picture of my mother. Maya, I know you know who it is, but there's something you didn't know. By the time the bridge had been repaired, 2 days after the murder, the hanging scroll in the training room looks like this.
Wonderfully delicious smell.
The morning after the crime, someone covered it with gravy. Gravy? But why gravy, Nick? Because gravy was much more than the condiment to the culprit. Well, Mr. Godot, if you really hadn't seen the hanging scroll until after the murder, you wouldn't have had any way of knowing that this was Misty Fey. Wait a minute, Nick! Yes. Take another look at the hanging scroll. Look, at the top. There's a crest there. Yes, it's a mark of the master, correct? Exactly. So if you know the meaning of the mark...
Then you could guess at the picture of Misty Fey on there?
True, but Mr. Godot described what was underneath like this. Clad in her stunning Japanese garb surrounded by the hue and aroma of Western tastes. Oh. Yes, it's possible that he knew what the crest meant. However, he couldn't have known that she was wearing Japanese clothing. Mr. Godot, on the day of the murder, you were hiding in the inner temple long before the crime took place.
Can I ask you just one little thing, Trite?
What is it?
This whole theory of yours, it all rests on a certain assumption. That I knew beforehand that a crime was going to be committed.
That's right. Otherwise there's no reason for him to sneak onto the crime scene. Of course Mr. Godot knew about the plan. Huh?
What did you say?
Yes. There's something we need to give you.
Take that!
This crime was actually planned over a year ago. Morgan Fay authored the plan for her daughter's future, and these instructions were hidden somewhere in Fay Manor for a year. However, by the time Little Pearl found these instructions, they had already been unsealed.
Unsealed?
Yes, the killer had read the instructions long before Pearls ever found them. That's how he knew the crime was to take place at the inner temple.
Do you still insist?
Are you still insisting this? Are you still insist? That's why my brain can't read it. It's not right.
Are you still insisting this crafty killer is me?
You bet I do.
But you just said that the instructions were hidden.
That's right. Mr. Godot couldn't have known where the instructions were hidden. If he really wanted to know, he had one great chance to find out.
Yes, and when was that?
During a visit. A visit? Morgan Fay told her daughter Pearl about where the instructions were hidden. During one of her visits to the detention center. That would be the only time for someone to have learned where they were hidden.
Eavesdropping on a visit to the detention center?
Yes, it could be arranged if you were someone with easy access in and out of there. Like, for example, a prosecutor such as Mr. Godot.
Order, order, order! Mr. Godot, you're under fire again.
This murder could not have been carried out without prior knowledge. And you? You were the only one that could have acquired this information before the murder.
Humans are afraid of the dark. And yet, at the same time, we're fascinated and bewitched by it. Maybe that's why humans drink the darkness that is coffee.
Sorry for always asking, what does that mean?
It means there's a reason for everything. According to your theory, the killer in this case eavesdropped on a conversation during a jail visit where he learned a hidden plan for a crime. After discovering the plans, he hid in the inner temple and waited for the crime to occur. Then, he ultimately took a person's life. And he did all of that just to protect this witness.
That's right.
If you're accusing me of this crime, I have to ask you, why would I do this? This girl is nothing but a stranger to me. I've got no reason to go through that kind of trouble to protect her. I am what you see. I'm certainly not the type to rescue the damsel in distress.
The killer's behavior is certainly extreme, for lack of a better word, even considering that the killer wanted to protect this witness's life. His behavior is still a little too unnatural.
Objection! However, you had a good reason, didn't you, Mr. Godot? An unshakable reason that forced you to protect this witness at all costs. And it's now why Maya's trying to protect you back, because she knows this too. I knew it. You figured it out, haven't you, Nick? Maya, I guess you were doing your best to cover for Godot. For the same reason, huh?
Okay, Trite. I'm all ears. Let's hear it.
Very simple. Maya Fay is a lot more than just a stranger to you.
What's this?
There's one person who lies at the very center of this whole story. One person that ties you and Maya Fay together indiscriminably. There's a very good reason why Maya Fay's life is so precious to you. After all, she is Mia Fay's only sister.
Mia Fay.
You once worked alongside her. That was when you were a defense attorney.
Wait a second here. Mr. Godot is a defense attorney?
With your honor's piercing intellect, you must have figured it out by now. The real name of this man who calls himself Godot. His real name is Diego Armando. Isn't that right?
The last time someone called me by that name was over 6 years ago.
Diego Armando. That name does ring a bell.
It should, Your Honor. All of this is related to a single case. A case in which a convict named Terry Falls killed himself. Mia Fey's first time in court, the tragic outcome left a deep wound in her heart. She knew that behind it all was a heartless, scheming demoness in disguise. But in the end, Mia couldn't tear off that disguise. However, there was one man who reached out to help her. Diego Armando, a senior defense attorney at the office where Mia worked. It's my fault! It's all my fault that Mr. Falls killed himself.
Mia, you can't cry yet. The only time a lawyer can cry is when it's all over.
I was moved by her. The way she put all her faith in her clients. That pure, sweet heart of hers. That's why I could never forgive Dahlia Hawthorne. Mia and I thoroughly investigated that fake kidnapping incident. Then one fateful day, Dahlia wanted to meet with me. It had been 6 months since the trial. We met in the courthouse cafeteria.
Oh, I just remembered. 6 years ago, right here in this courthouse, you were poisoned.
Even I didn't see it coming. Dahlia Hawthorne slipped some poison into my coffee.
Some newspapers at the time called it a murder. But very little information about the case was released to the press.
But you weren't dead at all.
No official reports ever actually called it a murder. I was just in a deep, deep coma.
I see.
My body shut down, and my life became nothing but a long, deep sleep. That woman's poison did a real number on my central nervous system. I lost my sight, and all of my hair turned white due to the damage it caused.
It's terrible.
Apparently, it was a miracle that I ever regained consciousness. 5 years had passed since I drank that poisoned brew. Then one morning, my eyes flew open from the smell of a doctor's cup of coffee.
5 years? You were asleep for 5 years?
And the worst possible news was waiting for me. Mia Fey was dead. From the very moment I opened my eyes, I had already lost everything I thought I had. The woman I loved had been murdered. And the woman I loathed had been sentenced to death.
The woman you loathed?
The woman who had spiked my scalding hot coffee. Dahlia Hawthorne. Ah, good old Mia. She didn't let me down. She got her revenge before she checked out. In the end, there wasn't anyone waiting for me when I woke up.
That's so sad.
For someone like me, for someone who had always slipped away their best days, there were only 2 reasons left to live. And it was for those 2 reasons that I decided to become a prosecutor.
If I may ask, what were your 2 reasons to live?
The first was you, Wright.
Huh? Me?
If I hadn't drunk that stupid poison, Mia Fey would have never have died, much less the way she did. You were the only one who was there to protect her. But you let her die. It was all your fault.
I'm genuinely tearing up. It wasn't like that.
I wanted to see for myself what kind of man you really were.
So that's why you became a prosecutor.
My other reason for living. She goes by the name of Maya Fey.
Huh? You mean me?
You were the only way I could make up for the sin of not saving Mia. 1 year ago, when the Karain village incident was resolved, it was obvious that Morgan Fey was planning something. Whatever her evil plan was, I was determined to stop it. My role as a prosecutor put me in the perfect position to do something about her.
That's how you overheard Pearl's visit with Morgan at the detention center.
I knew that the time was drawing near. Since I knew the plan, I thought I could foil it. My goal was to outwit the plan. I thought if I could do that, I could keep that girl from being caught up in it.
That makes sense. If Pearls had known that the actual purpose of the plan was to kill Maya, she never would have helped out.
Finally, the day of the plan was drawing near. I contacted both of my accomplices.
Accomplices?
Iris of Azakura Temple and Misty Fey. I especially needed the help of Iris. She was to take the fall in my backup plan in case we couldn't control Pearl.
But how did you contact my mother? She had been missing for almost 20 years.
Officially, yes.
What? What do you mean officially?
You've heard about it, haven't you? About the strong ties between the main family and the government.
Now you mention it, Bikini did say something to that effect. She said that the Master of Karain had great authority.
Even without her official position, Misty Fey still wielded great influence. The police have been keeping an eye on her movements all this time. That's how I was able to contact her. Again, because of my position as a prosecutor.
So my mother was cooperating with you?
Don't ever forget, no matter how far away from you she was, she never stopped thinking about you.
She was always...
That's why I knew she would do anything to protect you. If you want to know how strong her resolve to protect you was, look at her staff.
Her staff? The one with the sword in it?
The day the plan was to carry it out arrived soon enough. We met for the first time at Azakura Temple. That's when your mother showed me her special staff. I realized it then, just how far she was willing to go. She was ready to use that sword to protect you from Morgan Fey if necessary. Yes, even if it meant paying the ultimate price.
Mother.
That night, the night of the crime, there was just one way to stop Morgan's evil plan.
You mean Pearls, don't you?
We had to make sure she didn't channel Dahlia Hawthorne.
Well, Pearl, what are you going to do tonight? Well, if you'd like, you can come to my room. Perhaps we can read some books together.
We thought we could prevent her from playing her part in Morgan's plan, but she never showed up.
She was worried and followed me to the inner temple.
That was the thing we were most afraid of. And that's why Misty Fey had to do the channeling herself. She channeled Dahlia Hawthorne into her own body.
What? What do you mean? She channeled the spirit first, then Pearls wouldn't be able to do it herself.
As Master of Karain, Misty Fey's power was supreme. So that's how it went down. She channeled Dahlia Hawthorne so that Pearl Fey wouldn't be able to.
What? Is that true?
My role in the plan was to make sure no one was going to hurt Maya Fey. That's why I hid myself at the inner temple, just in case you needed to be saved from Dahlia Hawthorne.
Godot.
Anyway, that's all I'm going to admit to. Wright. Huh? There's no doubt about it. You're a great defense attorney, but you're going to have to do the rest yourself.
The background leading up to this incident has been laid bare. There's just one question remaining, Mr. Wright. Who killed the victim? There are only two possible suspects right now. Maya Fey, and I'm sad to say, you, Mr. Godot.
Well, Wright, if you're the real deal, then finish this thing, once and for all. Show us, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you can finish this on your own.
No, Nick. Please don't.
Maya.
I heard the whole thing. From my sister, in the medical office. That's why we have to protect Mr. Godot. I can't do it. I can't testify against him. After all, he's the man who put his life on the line to protect Mia and me too.
Maya, I know that.
Nick.
But even so, it doesn't absolve him of his crime. Please, Maya, testify. Miss Fey, your testimony, please. This is the final testimony. Don't bother trying to hide anything because I'll know. I want to hear the truth from your own lips.
I understand. I'm sure you're right. I'm ready now, Nick.
Alright, young lady. Tell us about the moments before you lost consciousness. What exactly happened at the time of the murder?
The time of the murder. Just before it happened, I think I saw some red lights. 3 of them. I thought I'd ask for help, but just then I was splattered with blood. She wasn't dead though. She struck back at the enemy behind her. Suddenly, the red lights was out and the whole area was dark. Just at that moment, there was a horrible scream. Right after that, Dahlia collapsed and I lost consciousness.
The red lights? I thought you said you don't remember seeing them.
I'm sorry. I thought I saw them, but they disappeared all of a sudden.
Huh. Things break, Trite. Even the best of theories. Who was it that stabbed Misty Fey? Looks like you still can't prove it.
Maya's telling the truth this time, I know it. The rest is up to me.
Well then, Mr. Wright, proceed with your final cross-examination of the witness.
What do you mean by just at that moment? Do you mean the moment when the red lights went out? Yes, that's right. The scream that you heard then. Was it Dahlia Hawthorne? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure it was a man's voice.
What? So then the scream came out from the killer?
That's got to be it. I think Dahlia Hawthorne must have taken the blade and attacked the killer with it.
And then the killer let out a scream of pain, huh?
After that, the killer stole the blade back and delivered the final blow, I guess.
Well, Mr. Wright, seems to make sense to me. A reasonable deduction.
But there is a contradiction. I'm sorry to say this, but that interpretation would create an enormous contradiction.
That makes sense. After all, my deductions are almost certainly never correct.
Remember the testimony she just gave. Before the killer let out a scream, Maya said that she had already been splattered by the victim's blood. In other words, the blade and the staff had already been plunged into the victim. Is that right? She couldn't have struck back with the sword that was already stuck in her body. The weapon that caused the killer to let out such a scream must have been something other than the staff.
If you're so sure about that, then don't keep us waiting any longer, Trite.
There's only one thing I can think of that could have been used as a weapon here.
If Dahlia Hawthorne had already been stabbed in the back by the staff, what could she have used to strike back at the killer?
Naturally, the dagger the killer brought to the scene of the crime.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
The dagger was found at the crime scene, stuck into the pine tree.
Yes, the detective found it this morning and brought it to me.
Dahlia Hawthorne struck back at the killer with this, and she managed to wound him as well.
Objection!
Just because he let out a scream doesn't mean that he was wounded. For all we know, the blood on the dagger could have been one from the victim.
Objection! Have you forgotten that the blood has already been tested? Since we learned it wasn't the victim's blood, it must be the killer's blood. The killer must have a wound somewhere on his body.
So you're saying the blood on this dagger belongs to the killer?
Exactly. A DNA analysis of the blood would prove it's beyond a shadow of a doubt. And yes, Mr. Godot, it would prove that it's your blood.
Nice theory, trite.
Order! Order in the court! Is this the end? Have I done it? Even he won't be able to change the results of a scientific test.
Let me ask you something, trite. Let's just say that it turned out I was the killer. Do you really think I would be stupid enough to leave evidence like that?
What?
Just think for a second.
The dagger was found this morning by a detective and brought to me.
There was already blood on it, correct?
But even so, I was the one who brought this dagger here to the courtroom.
Yes? What does that prove?
Well, if I really were the killer, I could have washed the blood off and then painted another person's blood on it. That can't be.
In any case, there's one thing I can guarantee you, trite. That blood, it doesn't belong to me. Not a chance.
What?
In any event, it seems to be established that the killer was wounded. After that testimony...
Wait a minute.
What's the problem?
I know I probably shouldn't say this, but there's a big contradiction in Nick's explanation. This dagger, you said it wounded the killer?
That's right.
But if Mr. Godot had really been cut with the dagger, his clothes should be bloody or have a rip in them, right?
Maya?
Maybe he just changed his clothes. That solved that contradiction pretty easily. What are you talking about? It's not that simple at all. Remember back to the day of the murder? Everyone that was on the inner temple got trapped there.
Oh, that's right. And once the bridge was fixed and the police headed to the inner temple, Mr. Godot
was already there waiting for them. He never had the chance to change his clothes.
Order in the court. What does the witness say to this?
Well, maybe he brought a change of clothes with him.
But no one could have predicted the lightning strike that shut down the bridge. Why would anyone have brought a change of clothes?
The judge takes smart pills during the last recess. Well then, maybe the killer took his clothes off before he committed the murder, but he couldn't get any blood on them.
Objection!
That's impossible, trite. You know how cold it gets up there late at night. After a few minutes with no clothes on, you'd be frozen solid. So that's all you've got. I knew you weren't tough enough to finish this. Right now, if Mia Fey were here, she would have closed the book on this case already.
Mia Fey were here.
So come on, trite. Can you do it or not?
How about it, Mr. Wright? You've accused Mr. Godot of being the killer. Can you prove it? Have you got even one piece of evidence?
The question isn't whether I can prove it or not. The fact is, I have to prove it. That's the only choice I have. I was taught that it's one of the rules of being a lawyer. I can prove it. I'm going to bring your magnificent vengeance to fruition just as you want it. Listen to the music! What better way to send off the trilogy with the case that wraps it all together with the original Cornered theme. The original Pursuit theme. It's a subtle remix of it. There's some instrumentation changes to make the drum louder and more defined, which is deliberate because it's more impactful. It's the grand finale of the whole trilogy.
That's good. A fighter till the bitter end, trite. Since there's just one piece of evidence that can prove your point, why don't we go for the unlimited penalty?
It doesn't matter what health you have at this point. If you mess up once, it's game over. Hence, unlimited penalty. Are you trying to pressure me, Mr. Godot? Because it doesn't matter to me. I've got the one piece of evidence I need.
Give me a break. You've got nothing, Wright.
So what do I do at a time like this? It's simple. I've got to think outside the box and approach this from a different angle. Alright then. Mr. Wright, let's hear what you've got. There's one thing I've demonstrated in the previous cross-examination. The killer was wounded. That was proven by the blood on the dagger.
But we decided it was impossible for him to have hidden such a wound. He would have been cut by a dagger, there should have been a bloodstain on his clothing.
There's one place the killer could have hidden his wound.
What did you say?
Hidden. This is it. My last stand. I need to think about this from a different angle. I don't need to think about why there are no bloodstains on his clothing. I need to show how he hid the wound.
It's the end of the line. The final stop, Wright. Let's hear what you've got.
Where's the location where you say the killer hid his wound?
Take that! Ha! I don't know what you're talking about. And frankly, I don't need to know. What I do know is that you'll never be half the lawyer she was. Isn't that right, Wright? Huh? What was that just now? Mia? It can't be. You're living on through him?
Even as we speak, you're still hiding the wound. It's beneath your mask. During the fight, the red lights given off by the killer suddenly disappeared. Seconds later, the killer let out a scream. That's right, your mask went flying off your face. Mr. Godot, would you mind removing your mask? If you have a dagger wound under there somewhere, then I'd say this whole case is solved.
Ugh. Just now, I saw her spirit in you. I never liked you. 6 years ago. You helped the woman who put me to sleep by hiding her bottle of poison. And then, while I was sleeping, you let Mia die. But you didn't care. You just kept living your pathetic, happy-go-lucky life. You even had the nerve to follow in her footsteps as a lawyer. I could never forgive you. That's what I thought.
Mr. Godot.
But I was wrong about you. I knew it from the very beginning. The truth is, the one person I could never find it in my heart to forgive was me.
You? Yourself?
I was the one that failed to protect Mia. Me, and no one else. I tried to avert my eyes from the truth, to escape from the harshness of reality. I just couldn't face Mia's death head on, so I ran. I hid behind a mask. I threw away my true name. I couldn't even deal with being a defense attorney anymore, so I quit.
But you saved Maya.
Yeah, that was my plan. Up until just now, anyway.
What do you mean?
Are you listening, Maya? If I had really wanted to save you, then there's one person that I should have gone and talked to right away.
Who would that be? Are you talking about Nick?
But I didn't do it. I tried to get help from Iris and your mother, but I closed my eyes to the most important man involved. Do you know why? The real reason?
No. Why?
I suppose I wasn't really interested in saving you at all.
Huh?
I think I was just trying to salvage what's left of my own broken soul. I was trying to make up for the fact I couldn't save Mia. Nothing more. That's why I let you walk right into a situation that I knew was dangerous. Forgive me.
You're wrong. You put your life on the line to save Maya.
Was it really for Maya's sake? Even I'm not really sure.
What do you mean by that?
That night, in the darkness of the garden, when I saw her silhouette, a part of me must have known the truth. The truth that it wasn't really Dahlia Hawthorne standing there in front of me. It could have been Misty Faye, or even that little girl. But I still picked up the blade. It was like I was dreaming. I'm not sure exactly what was going on in my mind at that point. Was I really motivated by the pure desire to protect Maya Faye? Or was it something else? Was it my hatred for a woman who had stolen everything from me 6 years earlier? Could it have been simply a desire for revenge? And now, I don't know anything anymore. I did learn something today, however. I finally realized that I was the arrogant one. I was just chasing an illusion. A fantasy. A stupid fantasy of defeating you in the courtroom. You were the one who made me realize my folly. You never ran away from Mia's death. Instead, you picked up where she left off, as a true defender of the people. In that one moment, I understood everything.
Mr. Godot.
I think you already know this, but if you don't, my name is Diego Armando.
Mr. Armando, I believe in you. I know you were trying to save me. Aww.
Thanks.
Your wound, it's bleeding.
Ha! Did you forget already? In my world, the color red doesn't exist.
It's tears.
These must be my tears.
Tears?
Ever since I woke up from my coma, I think I've been waiting for this very moment.
Mr. Armando.
Do you do well to remember this, Maya? The only time a lawyer can cry is when it's all over.
This time really is all over, isn't it? Defendant?
Yes, Your Honor.
Although you weren't directly involved in the murder, tampering with the body and the crime scene is a serious offense in itself.
I understand, Your Honor. Mr. Armando explained that to me very carefully. I knew the risk, and I willingly cooperated anyway.
Very well. Before I hand down my verdict, is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, there is one thing. I'd like to say something to Mr. Wright. I want to apologize to you.
Apologize to me? For what?
For the case 5 years ago, of course.
I just remembered. Weren't you poisoned by your own lover?
Not exactly, but yeah, something like that. Even now, 5 years later, I can hardly believe it. She was going to do it. She was planning to kill me. It's not all that surprising. The two of you hardly knew each other.
Huh?
What do you mean? You and my sister. You only met twice.
Huh? We only met twice?
The first time you met was on that fateful day. The day she poisoned Mr. Armando in the cafeteria at this very courthouse. The next time you met her was 8 months later. You met her again the day that she stole your cold medicine. And Dog Swallow was killed.
No way! It's just, it can't be true.
I mean, during the whole relationship, we were... For those 8 months, the woman that you thought was Dahlia Hawthorne wasn't actually my sister.
Huh? It wasn't Dahlia?
I hope one day you can forgive me, Feeney. You mean... That's right. I lied to you for 8 months.
But why? Why would you do such a thing?
Ever since she gave you the bottle that day, my sister was trying to get it back as soon as she possibly could. Because of the police investigation and their surveillance, she couldn't move about freely. So that's why you... My sister, from the beginning, she was prepared for the worst.
Prepared for the worst?
She thought that you might somehow discover the truth. That's why she was always ready to deal with you at a moment's notice.
You mean she was ready to kill me, don't you?
She already had so much to answer for. I didn't want any more sins on her soul. I begged her not to do it, and she agreed to give me a chance. And that's why you came to me. You came to get the bottle pendant back from me in her place. I couldn't get you to give it back. I failed at something even as simple as that. 8 months passed and I still couldn't get it back from you. Finally, my sister couldn't wait any longer. She didn't consult me about her plans for you that day. It was the first time that it had ever happened. That was a bit strange, wasn't it? Up until that day, you two were partners in crime, and she would confer with you. I think she must have noticed.
Noticed what?
My feelings for you. If I had found out she was planning to kill you, I would have done whatever was necessary to stop her. Even if it meant her life, or mine. Iris, after spending those 8 months by your side, my feelings towards you, they changed.
I have something to say to you two.
Yeah?
You really are the person I always thought you were. Even after Dahlia Hawthorne was found guilty, I still believed in you.
Thank you.
How many cups of darkness have I drunk over the years? Even I don't know. I'll tell you though. Right now, this one here is the greatest cup I think I've ever had. Don't you think so? Phoenix Wright. Yeah, I think you're right. The purpose of this trial was to rule on the murder of the victim, Elise Dusenham. At some point, I expect you will be tried for your role as an accomplice in this case.
I understand, Your Honor.
Very well. On the charge of the murder, I hereby find the defendant not guilty. Court is now adjourned. February the 10th, 4:51 PM, District Court, Defendant Lobby Number 1. So I guess it's all over. Where everything ended was justice really served.
The man who risked his life to save Maya is being sent to prison by my own hand. Of course, justice was served. Mia, I'm proud of you, Phoenix. Your defense was truly brilliant. But I couldn't save Mr. Armando, the man who cared so deeply for you. You're wrong, Phoenix. You did save Diego. You saved him in the only way possible. You mean, with that verdict? I think one day you'll understand too. Phoenix, I want you to remember one thing. You were as good out there today as any defense attorney could ever hope to be. There's nothing more you can learn from me. Mia, you've accomplished something I wasn't able to. I owe you a great deal. Thank you. Mia. I'm sure we'll meet again someday, Phoenix. I've handled lots of cases and seen a lot of things. And along this journey, I found myself asking just one question. What does it really mean to defend someone? Yep, it's literally the question he asked in case 1 of the first fucking game. Like I said, everything was leading to this point. I suppose today's case produced one possible answer. Nick. Maya. I guess it's just like my sis said. Mia? What did she say? That night, when I channeled Mia to get her advice on what to do, this is what she wrote back in my notebook. Don't worry, Phoenix will save everyone in the end. But, come on, cut it out with all that gloomy face. Can't you see, me, sis, I'm sure Iris too. We owe you for everything you have done for us, Nick. Maya, how can you be so bright and chipper after all that's happened? You were brutally attacked. You even saw your mother murdered. Ouch! Franziska! Still as softly as always, Phoenix Wright. Excellent work, Wright. Huh, Mr. Edgeworth, when did you get back? Oh, that's right. I guess no one filled her in on that. Edgeworth and Francisco have actually been helping me. Helping you? Yep, if these two hadn't been here on the first day of the trial, the defense wouldn't have gotten anywhere. Wow, but where were you, Nick? I heard he fell into a river and caught a nasty cold which forced him to sleep all day. Yes, he laid in bed shivering with his fever with Iris's hood pulled over his head. Oh, ouch. Talk about embarrassing, Nick. You definitely needed more training. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Edgeworth. And you too, Franziska. I don't suppose. Oh, get the fuck out of here, Larry. There's room for me in this group hug, is there? Oh, Larry. What's with the longer than usual face? I realized something when I was reborn. I realized that Larry was never of any use to anyone, not even once. That's not true. Right, Nick? What? You're asking me? Well, Nick, is it true? I've got a place in this world, right? Huh? Yeah, of course. I knew it. Everyone would be better off if I was gone for good. No. Oh, yeah. Those portraits you painted, they were really good. Isn't that right, Edgeworth?
What? Me?
Are you making that face so edgy? Oh, well, yes, indeed. I certainly can't say that they lack resemblance. Do you really mean it? What about you, Francie? Did I draw you well too? You are? My beauty can't possibly be captured by a mere crayon. Nevertheless, I recognize the effort you put into it, and that's worth something. Then you'll do it like you promised? You're kind of model for my next picture book, Frenzy Whipty Whip Trick. Ah! Don't get carried away. Well, how about that? I guess painting portraits is the only thing I'm good at. The painting of Pearl was pretty darn good too, if you ask me. Huh? Now that you mention it, I haven't seen her around. Pearls? Where could she have gone? Normally she would have been made a beeline for Maya. Oh, I'll go look for her. Be right back. Hey, Pearly! Right. You seem to be uncharacteristically puzzled. I suspect you're wondering how Maya can be so cheerful despite all that has happened. Yeah. To be honest, I can't understand it either. Franziska. That's right. She lost her father fairly recently as well. I think I understand how she feels. Maya is a much wiser person than she appears, and I think she realizes something. Now is exactly the time when she needs to be as strong as she can. What do you mean by now is exactly the time? Maya wasn't the only one who was badly wounded by this incident. In fact, there was someone that was hurt far more deeply than she. I believe it's for that person that Maya is trying her best not to cry. Someone who had hurt more deeply than Maya? Edgeworth. I think I'm starting to understand too. Ow! Then tell me, Phoenix Wright. Who is Maya Fey being strong for? Who else? Pearl Fey. Poor kid. After all, the reason she worked so hard to follow the instructions was because she loved and believed in her mother, Morgan. It's for the good of the Fey clan. I'm sure she believed it in every last word. She thought she was doing it for Maya. That's why she was so happy. It shows how truly devoted she is to Maya. But it's a cruel irony that it was her exuberance that led to this tragedy. Maya Fey's mother was killed, and Maya herself was put into the deepest peril imaginable. And that's exactly why Maya is putting on a brave face. She's doing it for Pearl's sake, until she can see her smile again.
Oh, hey, so this is where you all were. Wow, looks like we got quite the bunch here today. Ouch! What's that for, sir?
Sorry about that, Scruffy. My whip just seemed to have a mind of its own.
What's up, Detective Gumshoe? Oh, you know, this and that. Anyway, congrats on your win. Let's go out tonight, pal. Dinner's on me. My salary just sort of kind of gone down a teeny bit, but it's alright. I made reservations at the first-class French restaurants tonight. Ah!
Pretty good work, Scruffy. That whip was your reward.
Detective Gumshoe, you said a first-class French restaurant. You don't mean Très bien, where else?
I knew it, we're doomed.
Come on, let's go, everyone. You can't keep Maggie waiting, pal.
Hey, you!
Hey, you, crybaby, you're invited too.
No, forget about me. Pearl and I will be at the Loser's Shack eating potatoes. You know, Maya is taking an awfully long time to get back. She's still out looking for pearls. Oh, Maya? What's wrong? Nick, what do I do? Pearl, I can't find her anywhere.
Huh? I bet she just went back home, that's all.
I thought so too, so I called the village. But no one has heard from her. This has never happened before.
As I figured, she's been badly hurt by this incident. She feels responsible for the tragedy that has befallen you, Maya.
But none of this was her fault. What should I do?
Detective Gumshoe? Yeah, what is it, pal? Could you guys go on ahead? But what about you? Maya and I will. We'll join you guys once we find pearls.
Nick?
Don't worry about us, Detective Gumshoe. You may be a little late, but we'll definitely be there. We have a lot of celebrating to do tonight, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. Yeah, but you're the... Ah!
Very well, Phoenix Wright. We'll go on ahead.
Don't keep us waiting, Wright. We won't.
But where should we look? Where could Pearlie have gone?
Let's go, Maya. There's only one place I can think that pearls might have gone to. February the 10th. Azakura Temple, main gate.
Azakura Temple.
For pearls, I bet this is a very important place. After all, it's where this whole incident started.
What's this? You're all back again so soon? Sister Bikini. I thought we'd be eating mashed potatoes alone tonight. So she's here? Pearlie is here? She's in the training hall. Why didn't you hurry along and go see her? Okay.
Pearlie's not here. Ah, Maya, the hanging scroll. She cleaned it. Someone cleaned it off. It's got to be pearls.
Ah! Mystic Maya! Pearlie! Why did you just leave like that? Mystic Maya! Mystic Maya! I swore that I would never trouble the two of you ever again. Because it's all my fault that Mystic Maya's mother...
That's why you came here?
the least I could do to pray for your happiness. You don't have to do that, Pearly. It wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Of course I'm sad that my mother is gone. But, how do I say this? I'm still happy. You don't have to lie just to make me feel better. No, really. It's true. The only reason I'm still here is all thanks to everyone who was there for me. My sis, loud vehicles, my mother, Mr. Armando, Nick, and you. If even one of you weren't there, I'm sure I wouldn't still be alive right now. That's why I have to be strong. For all the people that were there for me when I needed them. That's all I can really do. Mystic Maya. I'm impressed. You truly are the daughter of the Mystic Misty. Sister Bikini. Your mother, Mystic Misty, was a strong woman indeed. I want to tell you what she said to me that night. After dishonouring the good name of Karain, I don't have the right to face my daughter. But still, Maya is always in my thoughts. It's true. She will always be with me until the day I die. Your spirit was with her, and that's why your mother was so strong. Even at the end, I'm sure she had no regrets. She'll always be with me until the day I die, huh? There's a rule or something all masters are to follow, isn't there? To never take the charm off until the day you die. It's the master's talisman. The thing that Misty kept by her heart and would never take off. It wasn't the container that was important. Rather, it was the content. That's... a photo? Of a... It's only natural for living creatures to fight to protect their own lives. But what makes us human is that we fight for others. But who do you fight for? How hard must you fight? That's the true measure of what human life is worth. We defense attorneys are warriors that are constantly challenged by that question. It wasn't the first time that vase got broke. Misty broke it too at one point. Even the battle is over and the bonds that connect us are severed. We always return, time and time again. Mia, Maya, Pearls, Mr. Armando, and Maya's mother too. Oh, so that's supposed to be Mia and Maya, sorry, that's supposed to be both the kids. It's Misty that took the picture. I learned that from all of them. Well, shall we get going? Everyone is waiting. This is a day to remember, a day when a lot of things were finally put to rest. I think we should celebrate what we've overcome today. But I still can't... Oh, go on, sweetie. You can come back for training any time. Okay. Alright, I'm going to make a brand new start too. Sister Bikini, I'll be back for more training, I promise. I know, and I won't go easy on you just because you're the future master. I'll make sure to prepare reservations for 3 of you when you come back. Alright, we're going to have a great feast today, Pearly. You know why? Because training is a battlefield of endurance. Okay, Mystic Maya, I'll eat lots and lots of food tonight. You know, there's one thing I don't get, and it probably doesn't want to, but... What is it, Nick? Reservations for training is fine and all, but why for free? Come on, what do you think? You're one of us, Nick. Next time you can train right alongside us. Huh? I'll be waiting for you. Sister Bikini will take special care of you. Huh? Huh? It'll be great, Nick. We're going to do the special course, naturally. That's a great idea, after all, Mr. Nick. You'd do anything for Mystic Maya, wouldn't you? Even walk on hot coals, right? Pearl. Phoenix is still recovering. That the person he actually believed in and actually loved was a good person. After years of being told that it was a murderer. You know, the actual love of his life, Iris, is actually now, you know, going to prison for a longish time for being an accomplice of murder. Which is something I really please at some point in the future of this franchise. let Iris come back. But there's been so many time skips since this game, like after this game, there's been so many time skips, they must be able to like say like, oh, she's been out, or like let her go on probation or something. Because I want that to be like because the reason why they go to Apollo Justice in the next one, and the reason why they kind of jump around protagonists and eventually start doing the Great Ace Attorney, is because they felt like there wasn't much more they could do with Phoenix and his character after this game. Well, then wrap it up. Tie it up in a nice bow. Make it the nice ending that Iris gets out, like gets let out properly, and Phoenix eventually like decides that he wants to just settle down and be able to have a normal life with his partner after so many years of being without her. You know? That they actually get to rediscover themselves after so long and learn to love each other again, and they find their way forward. Let that be their definitive ending. If you want to let Phoenix Wright as a character go, which is what they've been trying to do since this game, do that. So he gets a happy ending. You don't need to know what happens next because you know he's happy, you know? That's probably my biggest wish for Phoenix Wright 7 if that ever happens. Give Phoenix Wright his happy ending. We'll have a nice big meal before we come next time, right, Nick? You know? I was wondering if I can just say one little thing. Sure, of course you can. Oh, I love this part. I can't wait to hear it. I'm getting goosebumps too. Well then, here goes nothing. Objection! And that ends Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations. The final game of the original trilogy, and still my personal favourite of the lot. I really have to work extra hard now. Master of Crane and the official manager of Wright & Co. law offices. And I have to be a good big sister to Pearlie and Nick too. Well, as long as I'm not locked up or captured or something like that. This game to me is still the peak of the franchise too. But I love it so goddamn much. Don't get me wrong, the Great Ace Attorney games, from what I've heard, are fucking phenomenal. But this to me, Apollo Justice, Dual Destiny, Spirits of Justice, they never got close to what this did. I went for the special course. Actually, I heard there's a legendary extra special ultra course here too. I think I'll surprise the two of them by making them a secret reservation. But what made this work is that it had the build up of the first two games. Everything in this game is linking everything together from the entire franchise up until that point. And the future games just don't do that. They make them more self-contained. So this legacy knowledge gets missing. You lose some of that in Apollo Justice, in Dual Destinies, in SOJ. You know, it doesn't have it there, and it's why I love this game so much, because it's felt so rewarding after the first two to go through this and have all these links and all these loose ends and all these things. Oh, hello, Adrian Andrews. Mr. Wright, I'm once again in your debt. Thanks to you, the Treasures of Crane exhibit was a great success. I even got to see Miss Von Karma, who I hadn't seen for almost a year. She taught me how to use a whip and said that I must show you what I've learned. This game genuinely means a lot to me. It's why I teared up with like Godot's bit, because I love Godot as a character. He's my favourite prosecutor next to Edgeworth. Desi and I started a company called Master Mars Consulting. We're dedicated to stopping the evil plans of all the criminals in the city. Our motto is cut it out, please. Pretty cute, huh? Well, we also sell plans to the criminals as a kind of side business. I wonder if that's okay. Sometimes I think maybe we're the worst criminals. And it's what I desperately want out of Phoenix Wright 7, whenever that eventually happens. I want it to tie to older games again. I want it to feel like there's a constant connection. I wanted to show my appreciation to Mr. Wright for exterminating Don Tiger. So I lent him $500,000 and a tea set. A special fig tea, one mixed with my own 2 hands. I bet he's drinking it now. A win through compromise. Like, tie us together. That's why I want things like Iris to come back in the 7th one. I want that to, like, if you're going to tie the bow, tie it to the original trilogy. It's why I love the plays so much. Oh, and the fucking music of this credits been. It being a remix of like a bunch of tracks throughout the whole trilogy in like this really soft piece. Like, it genuinely felt like the ending. Like, it's like, it might be over dramatic, but I always describe this as like the end of an era for Phoenix Wright, because the series really started changing after this game. As usual, we have an abundance of work to do. We hired a new programmer to replace Glenn Elg. I do hope everyone will get along. His name is Adamada. I soon heard his name. I knew our brain circuits would align perfectly. Listen, that's not to say I don't not enjoy, you know, that's not to say I don't enjoy the sequel trilogy. I enjoy them for what they are. It's just they never quite captured the magic the original trilogy did for me when I went through them. Especially in the spring. I can hardly wait for Iris to come back. I can't wait for her to come back. I really hope she does. So I want so much out of a 7th game just to link back to these 3 more than the 4, 5 and 6. But this doesn't mean that 4, 5 and 6 are bad by any stretch. I really like Apollo Justice. Apollo Justice's final case is fucking phenomenal. You turned into such a responsible man, Feeny. It was so sweet of you and everyone else to come and visit me here the other day. Of course I was happy that you constantly had your eyes on me, but I felt kind of bad when the little one slapped you so hard you got a nosebleed. Pearl wasn't so keen on the fact that Phoenix's heart belongs to Iris still. The voice cast, I love that they do this. Phoenix Wright, Ben Grumman Judd. Miles Edgeworth, Sean King. I love that they did this for the end of the trilogy. Actually did the whole voice cast. Mia Fey, Christina Catano. And you get to see all the cool animations again. Objection! James C. Wilson. Oh, she's... Objection! Franziska von Karma, Jeanette Hsu. Oh, fucking Vincent Payne. David Crislip.
What's this? I'm back for a long time vacation and no one here is to greet me. Guess while I was gone, my little whippersnapper buddy quit, now I got no one. And what kind of lonely, crazy security room is this supposed to be anyway? Well, with all the flashing lights and switches, I feel like some sort of space alien. And now what am I going to do with all these magical markers and that's brought back for everyone? I bring them over to Edgy Poo and know exactly what he saw. I really can't accept these, I'm afraid, or something like that paid for this fragile heart. Oh, what will I ever be a gentleman who treat me like a refined lady?
And there's your obligatory old bag scenes, and she wasn't in most of the game, but there was traces of her everywhere. I finally found something that I love to do. Frenzied whippity whip trip's gonna turn the art world on its head. I should have realized it sooner. Self-centered, lazy, and antisocial. I'm an artist. Really good portrait artist. I'm not a loser after all. It's a real damn shame how many characters don't continue to show up in the series after this game as well. To get so attached to this trilogy, to then go into Apollo Justice, DD, and SOJ, and so many characters be gone. I love this fucking picture, by the way. I love this picture so much. And this is super sick too, like the old guard of Mia, of Misty and Godot. Even if Godot isn't his Diego style. Bridge to the Turnabout trophy earned. And I should get the rest of the trophies in this game. A lawyer only cries once it's all over, and then I should get the platinum. Ace Attorney Trilogy. Taking a fucking screenshot of that, I'll chuck that on my Twitter or something later. That's it. That's everything. We have officially done every single case of the original trilogy. The first Turnabout, Turnabout Sisters, Turnabout Samurai, Turnabout Goodbyes, Rise from the Ashes. The DLC, well technically DLC cases added exclusive to the DS version. For Justice of All, we did the Lost Turnabout, Reunion and Turnabout, Turnabout Big Top, and Farewell My Turnabout. And for Trials and Tribulations, we did Turnabout Memories, The Stolen, Recipe for Turnabout, Turnabout Beginnings, and Bridge to the Turnabout. If you haven't gathered by the fact it's the only one that made me tear up, Episode 5 Bridge to the Turnabout is... Case 3-5 is my favourite case of the trilogy. I love this case so goddamn much. My second favourite case would be the last case of Justice. After that, I think it would be Turnabout Goodbyes. I found that case very interesting. But then after that, like, my bottom three on the opposite end of it, to be honest, are all the case threes, really. Like, Turnabout Samurai's okay and introduces us to Old Bag and some, like, really comedy moments, but it's like, eh. Turnabout Big Top, unfortunately I am with the majority. You know, I think it's one of the worst cases in the franchise. I just don't find it interesting, and the big twist of the case, it requires too many leaps in logic. But Recipe for Turnabout was fine. I actually think the weakest case was Stolen Turnabout. As much as I love the idea of what it does, and I love what it mixes with the formula, instead of making it just a murder trial, it starts out as a theft investigation that then turns into a murder trial. I just don't care for the person you're trying to deal with. Mr. Samari, he's not interesting at all. The Master Mask shit, I didn't find that interesting. I was only in it for Godot. But that's everything. When we next meet in the Ace Attorney series, because I can't say Phoenix Wright because that's not accurate technically, it will be the Great Ace Attorney, and I'll be playing it once again off the PS5. And hopefully we won't have to wait too long before we hear more about this rumoured sequel trilogy coming to consoles. Because I'd love to talk about what I love and what I don't love about what the sequel trilogy brought to the table and what it did different. And ultimately, Capcom, one day, fucking give us the investigation games, please. Give us Investigation 2, because the investigation duology is genuinely the only way that feels like you can continue some of the original legacy, because it includes the first three games cast in them. Francisco like shows up every now and then in it. Gumshoe's in it. Gumshoe's not in the fourth game onwards, for goodness sake. Like, Larry Butts ceases to exist. There's so many characters. Like, they narrowed down the original trilogy's cast to literally just Phoenix and Edgeworth for the longest time. They got rid of Maya. She didn't come back to the sixth game. They got rid of Pearl. Even though Pearl grows up and like becomes her own character and things happen, like, she was sidelined. It was very much the Phoenix and Miles only. Every other character where people knew established in Apollo Justice and then Dual Destinies. And it was only, like I said, with Spirit that they started bringing like some of them back more properly. And I'm hoping the seventh game goes to full merit and like brings more people back proper, bring back the old guard, especially because I kind of don't think Apollo's going to be in 7, because his story's too done, if that makes sense. After Spirit of Justice, it felt like there was absolutely nothing they could do with his character anymore, so let him stay gone. Make it so it's Phoenix, Athena, and maybe a new character if they must, but stick it with that. And have some of the old stuff come back, have some of the original references, have Old Bag like harassing Edgeworth, have like Larry Butts show up every now and then, have my biggest one, have Iris come back, please. But I'm going to wrap it up here. I can't stress enough, I love particularly Trials and Tribulations, but I love the whole trilogy. And as much as Trials and Tribulations is my favourite one, I wouldn't say start on it. I'd say what makes it so brilliant and so beautiful and so endearing to me is how it links the trilogy together. So if you have your own experience and knowledge of the first two, Trials and Tribulations becomes a goddamn gem. It becomes the masterpiece it was meant to be, and I love it all for it. But that being said, thank you so much for watching as always. I don't know if I'll be streaming tomorrow. Assume not unless I do, kind of thing, but we'll see. But as always, thank you so much for watching. And I will see you next time when we'll be going back to more Blue Reflections. Peace.